The training arena was loud and alive, filled with the sound of alien voices echoing off the metal walls. Bright lights hung from above, shining down on a circle in the middle of the floor. It was where cadets fought, trained, and proved themselves. Today, all eyes were on one small figure standing among giants. Elara, the only human cadet in the entire alien academy, stood with her hands behind her back. Her uniform was clean, but worn at the edges. Her boots dusty from morning drills. Around her, alien cadets towered over her, their skin glowing with strange colors, their eyes like sharp blades. Most of them stared at her with smirks. Some whispered insults under their breath. Across from her stood the alien coach. He was massive, 7 feet tall, with 4 thick arms, and skin like dark steel. His eyes were black and cold, and when he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You are too fragile, human," he said, stepping closer. "You will not survive long here." Elara didn't answer. She had learned early that words meant little in this place. The coach paced around her like a predator, the crowd of cadets watching closely. Without warning, his upper right hand shot out. The slap hit her face so hard that her head snapped. To the side, the sound echoed in the arena, sharp and shocking. Gasps rose from the crowd, followed by laughter. Some cadets clapped, others shook their heads. The coach stood tall, waiting for her to crumble. Instead, Elara slowly turned her head back toward him. Her cheek stung, but her eyes were calm. She looked straight at him and said quietly, "Your turn is over." The laughter stopped. The arena grew silent. Something in her voice was different, cold, steady, dangerous. In a flash, she moved. Her foot slid forward. Her body twisted. Before anyone could blink, she struck his side. With her elbow, the coach grunted in surprise, stumbling half a step. He hadn't expected her to move so fast. The crowd murmured in confusion. A human moving faster than alien eyes could follow was impossible. Elara didn't give him time to recover. She stepped back, her stance ready, her breathing even. The coach's dark eyes narrowed. "You dare," he growled. His lower arms clenched into fists. The air between them felt heavy. Elara's mind was sharp. She had trained for this moment. Every insult, every doubt, every shove in the halls, she had stored it away. And now she was ready to give it back. The coach lunged without warning. His forearms swung in a blur. Aiming to knock her flat, Elara shifted her weight, sliding just out of reach. Her eyes never left his. It was like watching a storm form quiet, then sudden chaos. One alien cadet in the crowd whispered, "She's not normal." Another said, "I didn't even see her move." Whispers spread quickly. Everyone was realizing this was not going to be an ordinary training match. The coach's heavy boots pounded against the floor as he came at her again, but Elara's focus didn't break. Every muscle in her body was ready. She was not here to prove she was equal. She was here to prove she was better. The commander's voice echoed in her memory. "You don't belong here, human. You'll break before you bend them." She had said nothing at the time, but in her heart, she made a promise that one day they would see. The coach swung again. This time, she stepped inside his guard. Her hand caught his wrist. Twisting hard, he grunted in pain. The crowd gasping again. Before he could pull away, she stepped back, releasing him, not because she couldn't finish it, but because she wanted him to know she could. They circled each other. The coach's breathing grew heavier. Elara's eyes stayed locked on his. The arena felt smaller now. Every cadet leaned forward, caught between fear and excitement. Then, in a single sharp move, the coach lunged again. Elara bent low, her foot sweeping under his legs. The giant stumbled forward, catching himself just before he hit the ground. The cadets erupted in shouts, some cheering, some yelling in anger. The coach straightened, his jaw tight. "This ends now," he snarled. Elara's voice was calm as she answered, "It hasn't even begun." The crowd froze. The tension was thick enough to choke on. No one knew what would happen next, but everyone knew one thing: this human cadet was not going to break. The arena still buzzed from what had just happened. Cadets whispered to each other, their voices sharp with shock and excitement. No one had ever seen the alien coach lose his balance before, and no one had ever seen a human make him stumble. Elara stood tall, her stance steady. She wasn't breathing hard, not yet. Her eyes never left the coach. She knew he was angry now, and when someone like him got angry, the fight always got dangerous. A memory flashed in her mind, weeks ago. Her first day at the academy, the coach had made her run drills until she collapsed. When she couldn't stand, he had ordered her to crawl across the training yard. Every cadet had watched and laughed. That humiliation had burned deep inside. She had promised herself she would never be seen as weak again. Back in the present, the coach's voice thundered. "You think speed will save you." "Human," he said, stepping forward. "This is combat, not a dance." His forearms moved into a ready stance. The air felt heavy. The ground seemed to wait. For the next strike, Elara didn't answer. Instead, she shifted her feet, ready for whatever came next. The coach lunged, his movements fast for his size, but Elara had studied him for weeks. She knew the rhythm of his attacks. The moment his right upper arm swung, she ducked. His lower arm came in, and she twisted away before he could recover. She stepped in close, her elbow slammed into his ribs. The sound of impact made the nearest cadets flinch. The coach staggered back a step. His black eyes narrowed, a growl rumbling from his chest. Elara took a single step back, not out of fear, but to give him space to choose his next move. The arena was silent for a heartbeat. Then the whispers started again. She hit him again. One alien cadet muttered, "How is she doing this?" Another asked. Some looked impressed, others angry. In the alien academy, respect was not given, was taken, and Elara was taking it one strike at a time. The coach roared and came at her again. This time, his movements were wilder, faster. He swung with all four arms, forcing her to dodge and weave. One strike grazed her shoulder, sending a jolt of pain down her arm. She ignored it, focusing on the next opening. She waited for the moment his upper left arm swung wide. Then she ducked. Under it, her leg hooked around his ankle, pulling hard. The coach's massive body tilted before he could fall. His lower arm shot down to the ground, catching himself. But the stumble was enough. The crowd gasped again. Now the cadets were leaning forward. Some had stopped laughing entirely. One whispered, "She's reading him." It was Trueller. Wasn't just reacting, she was predicting every move. The coach backed up. Breathing heavier than before, his eyes locked on hers. "You fight like you have something to prove." He said. Elara didn't look away. "I do," she replied, her voice calm. "More than you can understand." That answer made him pause, but only for a moment. Then he charged again, his heavy steps shaking the floor. Elara sidestepped. Twisting away from his reach, her fingers brushed the floor for balance before she sprang up again. The move was so fast that some cadets thought they had blinked and missed it. The sound of boots striking the ground echoed around the arena. The fight was turning into something far more serious than training. Even the instructors watching from the side shifted uncomfortably, but none dared to stop it. Elara's focus didn't break. Her body moved without hesitation. Her mind replayed every drill. Every night she had spent training alone. She remembered the small storage room she had used to practice. How she had pushed her body until her muscles ached so much she could barely stand. This was the moment all that pain was for. The coach swung again. This time, she caught his arm, twisting it hard. A sharp crack made him grunt in pain. She didn't hold on, she let go and stepped back. It wasn't about breaking him. It was about showing she could. The cadets were on their feet now. The noise in the arena had grown louder. Some shouted for the coach to finish it. Others shouted for Alara to win. The tension wrapped around everyone like a rope. The coach straightened, his teeth clenched. "You will regret this," he said. Alara's eyes narrowed. "I already regret letting you think I was weak," she answered. Then it happened. The coach lunged with a speed no one thought possible for his size. Alara moved too, their bodies clashing in the center of the arena for a moment. No one could see who had the advantage. Then the coach stumbled back, his lower lip bleeding. The crowd erupted, and somewhere in the shadows, a high-ranking officer had just walked in, watching, silent, as chaos unfolded in the training hall. The arena floor seemed smaller now. Every step, every breath, every movement echoed in the air. The alien cadets stood silent, leaning forward. The human girl had survived the coach's first onslaught. More than that, she had hurt him. Alara's chest rose and fell, but her breathing stayed controlled. She didn't let her eyes leave his. She knew this fight was not over. It was only shifting into the part where mistakes could break bones. The alien coach spat blood onto the floor. His forearms flexed, muscles tightening like coiled steel. His eyes glowed faintly, the way they did when his species entered a battle trance. "You will not humiliate me in front of my cadets," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Alara didn't speak. She let the silence press on him. Sometimes words gave away too much. And she wanted him guessing. Then he charged. But this time, there was no wild swing, no overconfidence. His movements were tighter, faster. The forearms moved in perfect rhythm, a wall of force closing in. Alara dropped low. His upper arms swung. Over her head, she rolled sideways, feeling the air shift as his lower arm cut past her face. In one smooth motion, she came up behind him. Her foot slammed into the back of his knee. The coach grunted, stumbling forward a step. Before he could turn, she was already moving. Her elbow struck the side of his back. It wasn't enough to knock him down, but it was enough to make him roar in frustration. The cadets began murmuring again. "She's toying with him." One whispered, "No." Another replied, "She's studying him." The coach spun, his lower right arm catching her across the ribs. Pain shot through her side. She bit it back and stayed on her feet. That was the danger, now his battle. Trance meant he was faster and stronger, but it also meant he was predictable. His attacks would follow instinct, and instinct could be read. He came at her again. She sidestepped, grabbing his wrist as it passed, with a sharp twist. She pulled his arm across his own body that forced his other arms to adjust, leaving his chest open for half a second. She didn't waste it. Her palm shot forward, striking his sternum. The sound echoed. The coach's eyes widened for just a breath. Then he stepped back, shaking it off. But Alara had seen the truth. She could hurt him. Around them, the arena seemed to pulse with energy. Cadets forgot about rank, forgot about rules. They were watching something they would tell stories about later. A human and an alien, both refusing to yield. The coach tried to bait her now. He slowed his pace, letting his arms hang loose, pretending to be tired, but Alara knew better. She had seen predators do this before. Lax the body to hide the strike. She moved in cautiously when his upper left arm shot forward. She was ready. She caught it, twisting under it. Her legs swept forward. Kicking the side of his ankle, he dropped to one knee. Gasps rose from the crowd. It was the second time she had forced him down. This time, she didn't step away. She stayed close, her hand gripping his shoulder. "You're slower than you think," she said quietly. He growled and tried to stand. "Hush." She pushed him back down with her weight. It wasn't much, but it sent a message. The high-ranking officer in the shadows stepped closer. His eyes studied every move. He whispered something to the instructor beside him. The instructor nodded slowly. Whatever was happening in this fight, it was no longer just about training. The coach shoved up from the floor. Ilara let him rise, stepping back into her stance. Her ribs ached. Her legs felt heavy, but she kept her focus sharp. Pain could wait. Victory could not. The coach came at her again. This time, she didn't evade. She stepped into his attack, her hand catching his arm. Her other hand struck his jaw. It was a clean, precise hit. The kind that could only come from hours of practice. The blow made his head snap sideways. He staggered a step. The crowd erupted in noise. Some cheered her name. Others shouted for the coach to finish her. But the truth was clear to everyone watching. The human cadet was not only surviving, she was winning. The coach's breathing was heavy now. Sweat glistened across his steel-colored skin. His eyes still burned, but there was something else there now. A small, grudging respect. They stood facing each other. Both battered, both unyielding. The fight was far from over. But everyone in the arena knew the second strike had changed everything. The air in the arena felt heavy now. Every breath came with the weight of the fight. Sweat dripped down faces. But it wasn't just from heat, it was from tension. Every cadet could sense it. This wasn't just a spar anymore. It was something deeper, something personal. Ilara stood with her fists loose at her sides, her eyes locked on the alien coach. Her ribs still ached from the last blow, but she ignored the pain. She had fought through worse, much worse. The coach flexed his forearms, his voice low and steady. "No human has ever lasted this long against me," he said. "You should be proud." Ilara's jaw tightened. "I'm not here for your approval," she replied. The crowd murmured at her tone. It was dangerous to speak to the coach like that, but she didn't care. This was the moment she had waited for. The moment to tell him why she had stepped into this arena without fear. "You don't remember, do you?" she said, her voice cutting through the noise. The coach tilted his head. "Remember what?" Her eyes narrowed. "My brother," she said. The murmurs grew louder. This was unexpected. "I didn't have a brother in my class," the coach said. Her voice sharpened. "You did." The memories hit her like a punch. She saw her brother, 2 years older, strong, full of life. She saw him on the day he left for the Alien Academy. He had promised to come back with honor, but he hadn't come back at all. Ilara's voice was steady, but her hands curled into fists. "You called it a training accident," she said. "You said he couldn't keep up." Her chest rose and fell. "But I know the truth. He died here. Under you." Gasps spread through the arena. The coach's expression didn't change, but his eyes shifted just slightly. It was enough for Ilara to know she had struck a nerve. The coach's voice rumbled. "If you think I killed your brother, you're wrong. You let him die," she said, stepping forward. "You pushed him past his limits and then left him." In the dirt, the words cut through the air like a blade. Every cadet stood frozen. No one dared to move. The coach's arms lowered slightly. "I train soldiers, not children," he said. "If your brother failed, it was because he was weak." That word weak made Ilara's blood burn. Her brother had been many things, but never weak. She stepped closer, so close she could see the faint scars along his jaw. "You're wrong," she said, her voice sharp and cold. "You thought he was just another human who couldn't survive here." Her fists tightened. "I'm here to prove you wrong, and I'm going to do it in front of every single one of them." The crowd's silence was a living thing now. Every cadet's gaze flicked between them. They weren't just watching a fight anymore. They were watching justice unfold. The coach's lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. "So this is revenge," he said. "This is truth," she replied. And then they moved at the same time. His arms came forward in a crushing attack. Her body slipped under. One strike, twisting away from another. Her palm struck his ribs. He grunted. Bringing an arm around to block, she spun, her leg kicking out, catching his lower arm. The force made him stagger, but he stayed upright, his size and strength keeping him grounded. "You fight like him," he said suddenly. The words made her blink. For a moment, "I see his face in yours." She didn't know if he meant it as an insult or an acknowledgement. But she didn't stop. She pressed forward. Her strikes faster, sharper. Each movement was fueled by the memory of her brother's laughter. His determination and the emptiness left when he was gone. The coach blocked, countered, and struck back. But something had shifted. He was no longer just fighting to win. He was fighting against her truth. And the more she pressed, the more his balance faltered. The cadets began to sense it. Some of them looked at the coach differently now. If her words were true, then the man who had trained them all had blood on his hands. Elara ducked another strike, her hand shooting forward to grab his wrist. She twisted hard, forcing him to drop to one knee. The crowd gasped. It was the second time she had done it today. Her voice was low, but carried across the arena. "This is for him." She released him, stepping back. Her eyes never left his. She wanted him to stand again. Because she wasn't done, the coach pushed himself up, his breathing rough, his gaze was steady. But there was something in it now, flicker of doubt, and for the first time, Lara knew she had already won something. Not the fight, not yet, but the truth. The truth was hers. The officer in the shadows took another step forward, his eyes locked on Elara. He was already thinking about what her presence in the academy could mean. Not just for training, but for the future of humans among aliens. The fight would continue, but from this moment on, it would never be just about strength. Again. The arena felt like it was holding its breath. Cadets didn't blink. Afraid they might miss the next move, the air between Elara and the alien coach was thick. Not just with tension, but with something darker. They both knew the fight had shifted. This was no longer a test. It was a battle to decide who truly belonged here. The coach straightened to his full height. His chest rose and fell. Breathing heavy but steady. He flexed all four arms. The sound of his joints popping, echoing. In the stillness, "You've made your point, human," he said. "Leave the arena now. And I'll let you walk away." Elara didn't move. Her voice was calm, almost quiet. "I didn't come here to walk away." The words landed like a challenge. The cadets shifted in their places. Some whispered, others just stared in awe. The coach's eyes narrowed. "Then I'll show you why no one stands against me." He lowered into a new stance. One Elara had never seen before. His feet planted wide, his forearms angled like blades. It was faster, sharper, one of the advanced alien combat forms. The kind they never taught humans. He moved first. The speed was shocking. In one breath, he was across the arena, his upper arms striking high while his lower arms swept low. Elara barely twisted out of the way. One strike grazed her shoulder, sending a sharp pain down her arm. The force was like being hit with a steel bar. The crowd erupted in noise, half cheering, half shouting warnings. Elara steadied herself. She had seen fighters lose the moment they let pain distract them. She wouldn't make that mistake. He struck again. This time she dodged left, ducked low, and rolled to his side. Her hand shot out, striking his ribs, but his stance absorbed the blow, barely moving him. She realized with a chill that he wasn't fighting at full power before. Now he was. He came again, his movements relentless. Elara dodged one, blocked another. But the third hit landed square in her side. The breath rushed out of her. Her vision flickered for half a heartbeat. She stumbled back, boots skidding against the arena floor. The coach pressed forward. Every strike was precise, every step measured. It was like facing a storm, too fast to stop, too strong to block. Her mind raced. She couldn't outpower him. She had to outthink him. She studied his rhythm. Every fighter had won no matter how advanced. She let him push her back, her eyes catching the tiny moments between strikes. There just for a breath when he shifted his weight before the next attack. She waited, breathing through the ache in her ribs. When his arms came forward in a heavy strike, she stepped inside. His guard, her elbow slammed into his sternum. The sound was like a drum hit. He staggered back a step. Eyes widening in surprise, the cadets roared. Some began chanting her name. The coach glanced at the crowd, then back at her. There was no mockery in his eyes now, only focus. Only the desire to end this fight before she took control again. They circled each other. The arena floor was scuffed and marked from their movements. Sweat dripped down both their faces. Every step was a calculation. Every twitch of muscle could mean the next strike. The coach lunged again. Alara sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and used his own momentum to spin him around. He landed hard on one knee. Gasps filled the air. It was the third time she had forced him down. She didn't smile. Instead, she stepped back, giving him space. It wasn't mercy, it was a statement. She could finish this, but she wanted him to rise, to know that every time he got up, she would put him down again. The high-ranking officer in the shadows had moved closer now. His gaze followed Alira's every movement. He could see if the balance was shifting. The coach had the size, the power, the skill, but Alara had the timing, the speed, and the will. And will was harder to break. The coach rose slowly. His breathing was heavier, his movements less sharp. "You fight like you've been here before," he said. Alara's voice was steady. "I've been fighting my whole life." He roared and charged one last time, but Alara was ready. She pivoted on her heel, caught his arm, and in one smooth motion, threw him over her shoulder. He crashed onto the arena floor, the sound shaking the walls. For a long moment, no one moved. The coach lay there, staring up at the lights. Alara stood over him, her chest heaving. The crowd's silence was deafening. And in that silence, everyone knew the turning point had come, and the human cadet had seized it. The arena was so silent now that Alara could hear her own heartbeat. The alien coach was still on the ground. One knee bent, his breathing heavy. Around them, cadets stood, frozen, not sure if they were watching the end or just the beginning of something even bigger. The coach pushed himself up slowly, his massive arms shaking with effort. There was no laughter left in his eyes, no mockery, only a hard, focused glare. "You're strong, human," he said, his voice low and rough, "but strength is more than speed and timing." Alara didn't answer. Her stance was steady, her breathing slow. Every muscle in her body ached, but she didn't let it show. She knew what was coming, one last attack. And if she failed to meet it, the fight would end in his favor. The coach rolled his shoulders, each joint cracking loudly. Then he lowered his center of gravity, forearms bent and ready, his feet planted wide. It was the stance of a killing strike, the kind meant to end a fight in a single moment. Some cadets stepped back instinctively. They had seen this form before and they knew it could break bones. One whispered, "She can't take that head on." Another muttered, "If she does, it's over." The coach's breathing slowed. His focus sharpened, and then he moved. He came at her like a meteor, every arm striking in perfect rhythm. The first two arms aimed high for her head, the second pair sweeping low to take out her legs. It was an attack that had ended dozens of duels before they even began. But Alara didn't step back. She stepped forward. The moment his arms came in, she ducked under the high strikes. Her foot slid forward into his space. Her hands shot up. Catching his lower right arm, she used his momentum, twisting her body with his force. And then she pulled. The alien's massive frame lifted for a split second. his weight shifting just enough. Eliar's legs swept out, hooking his ankle. With a roar, the coach lost balance, and she slammed him into the ground so hard that the floor shook under their feet. Gasps and shouts filled the arena. Some cadets clutched the railings. Others stood with their mouths open. The coach lay on his back, the impact rattling through his body. For the first time, he didn't move to get up right away. Elara stood over him, her shadow falling across his chest. She didn't gloat. She didn't raise her hands in victory. Instead, she looked him in the eyes. The same eyes that had once looked at her with nothing but contempt. No. The high-ranking officer stepped forward from the shadows now. His boots clicked against the floor. The crowd went silent at his presence. He stopped just at the edge of the circle, his gaze fixed on Elara. "Enough," the officer said, his voice carrying through the air like a command that could not be ignored. Elara didn't move. She waited for the coach to react. Slowly, the alien rolled to his side, then pushed himself up to his knees. His breathing was heavy, but his eyes? They had changed. He looked at her, and instead of anger, there was something else. Respect. It wasn't loud or obvious. It was a quiet acknowledgement. The kind warriors shared when they recognized each other as equals. The officer spoke again. "From today forward, human cadet Elara will lead advanced combat drills." The announcement sent a ripple through the crowd. Some cadets stared in disbelief. Others nodded slowly. They had just watched her earn that place with her own hands. The coach rose fully. Towering over her again, he extended one of his massive hands toward her. Elara hesitated only for a moment before taking it. His grip was strong. "Your brother would have been proud," he said quietly, so only she could hear. Her eyes softened. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something close to closure. She released his hand and stepped back. The crowd erupted in noise, some cheering her name, others shouting in alien tongues. The fight was over, but the echoes of it would live in the academy for a long time. As the cadets began to disperse, Elara glanced toward the officer. He was still watching her. There was a weight in his gaze, something that told her this fight had been more than a test of skill. It had been a test of character, and she had passed, but deep in her chest, she knew this wasn't the end. Her brother's story wasn't fully told. And this victory, while powerful, was only one step toward something much larger. She had made her mark. Now she would have to defend it. The coach stepped past her, his voice carrying one last time. "Train them well, human," he said. Then he walked away, leaving her in the center of the arena, the sound of her own breathing mixing with the distant roar of voices. She didn't smile, but deep inside, a fire burned brighter than ever. The arena was empty now. The cheering had faded into the metallic echoes of the hall. Only the scent of dust and sweat lingered. Elara stood alone in the center of the training circle. Her heart was steady now, but her body felt heavy. The fight had ended, but the weight of what she had just done was only beginning to sink in. Her boots scraped against the floor as she walked toward the side benches. The marks of their battle were everywhere: scuffed tiles, shallow cracks where the coach had hit the ground.
Nice.
She ran her fingers along one of the dents in the floor. It was real. It had happened. She had faced the academy's most feared trainer and left standing. The locker room was quiet. Rows of metal doors stood open, and the faint hiss of the water system echoed from the showers. Elara sat on the bench. Unfastening her gloves, the skin on her knuckles was raw. Her ribs ached with every movement, but she didn't wince. Pain was just proof that she had pushed herself beyond her limits. She thought of her brother. For the first time in years, she didn't see his face in her mind as broken or defeated. She saw him smiling. She saw him proud. That image stayed with her, warming her even as exhaustion set in. The sound of footsteps made her glance toward the door. It was the high-ranking officer. He stepped inside without a word, his boots clicking against the metal floor. He stopped a few feet away. "You made history today," he said, his voice calm but carrying weight. "No human has ever done what you did." Ilara didn't respond right away. She wasn't sure if it was praise or a warning, the officer continued. "From now on, you won't just be a cadet. Your name will be known far beyond this academy." She met his gaze. "I didn't do it for fame," she said. "I know," he replied. "That's why it matters." He handed her a small metal insignia, silver, shaped like a blade crossing a star. "This marks you as an advanced instructor." He said, "Few ever earn it." She took the insignia in her palm, feeling its cold weight. It wasn't just metal. It was a promise, one she intended to keep when she looked up again. The officer's expression was unreadable, but his next words stayed with her. "You've proven yourself, Cadet Ilara," he said. "But proving yourself once is easy. Keeping that place, that's the real battle." He turned and left without another word. The sound of the door closing echoed in the empty room. Later that evening, the mess hall buzzed with noise. Every table was full, and every conversation seemed to lead back to the fight. Some cadets glanced at her with respect, others with jealousy. A few avoided her gaze entirely. Victory had changed her place here, but it had also painted a target on her back. As she sat with her tray of food, a shadow fell across the table. It was the alien coach. The noise in the hall dimmed as cadets noticed him. He set down a mug of water in front of her. "I owed you one," he said simply. She raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For proving me wrong," he replied. His voice wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. It was honest. He didn't stay long, just gave a small nod before turning to leave. That nod, more than anything, told her the truth she had earned his respect, and in this place, that was worth more than any medal. When she returned to her quarters, the halls were quiet. She sat on her bed, the insignia in her hand, through the window. The alien city glowed under its twin moons. Her reflection in the glass looked different tonight. Not because her face had changed, but because she finally saw herself the way she had always wanted to, as a fighter who belonged here. Still, she knew this wasn't the end. The academy was only the beginning. There were bigger battles ahead. Enemies who wouldn't be swayed by skill alone. And somewhere beyond these walls, people who still saw humans as weak. She intended to prove them wrong, too. Ilara lay back, closing her eyes. The ache in her body was deep, but beneath it was something stronger, a fire that had been lit in the heart of the arena and would never go out. Tomorrow, the drills would begin again, but tomorrow, she wouldn't just be another cadet in the line. She would be the one leading it, and when she thought of her brother one last time before sleep, her lips curved into the faintest smile, because she knew this was only the first victory, and it would not be the last.